like to welcome you to Akokoro, where we intend to have a first dipping of the cattle since 1987, when our animals were lost and basically life stopped. For many years, we've had promises of how the restoration of cattle is going to be done. In my own case, I had to have a meeting with my children, my nephews, my nieces, and even the grandnephews and nieces on what we're going to do in the future. All of them sought that we should restore the dip. The dip should function as it did before, as a community dip, serving the whole community in controlling vector-borne diseases. From that time, I told my children, for us to move forward, we have to let go of the past. In our own case, we had bitter memories of how Stanley Petro, my grandfather, was killed in 1987. How other members of the family suffered gross violations to themselves, to their dignity. But we made a conscious decision. Let go in order to move forward. You have to give something to take hold of the future. And we chose at a family level to forgive the past and to leave it in the hands of God. I have since then embarked on fixing the dip tank. We have completed the dip tank. It has been somehow delayed because of a lot of the politics, but today we want to have the first dipping since 1987, when the animals were lost and some lives were lost. For us, as part of Northern Uganda, to reclaim our future, I don't believe that we should hang on to promises. There are times you need to get our livelihoods and we manage our affairs in an organized way. As Uganda People's Congress, we came up with a different method on how the restoration of our livelihoods around cattle could be met. We put it clear in the manifesto. It's not a 5-year affair. It will take a number of years, but it is possible, and we can have a restoration of what the role cattle played in the community. I don't look at cattle as just as an asset. It was more like an insurance. It covered education insurance. It covered marriage insurance. It covered education insurance. Cattle could solve all the problems of society. So if we look at it simply as a returned asset, we're going to run into problems. And in order to be able to do so, us ourselves, my children and next generation, need to learn how to take care of the cattle. So any program which is to restore cattle in this part of the country will start by training, will start by awareness. If that has not happened, I will not hang on to that promise. But while I wait, I will still be doing what I can. So that is basically why I've called you here today in Akokoro City. I had received a quote from a prominent vet who caters for some of the big farms to rekit that dip tank to become a spray race. Spray race is gentler on animals, but has very, very many moving parts, so it's sometimes difficult to maintain. The quote I was given was 68 million. I opted to rehabilitate since I found the structure was the integrity was good, and I was able to do it at less than a quarter of what that quote is. It is not finished in that I've not roofed it, but the integrity, it was built well to start with, so the amount of work we had to put in was far less. And the dip tanks work better for communities because it's difficult for an individual farmer to have that sort of, at the moment, Northern Uganda suffers from a disease which goes by the abbreviation CBPP, which is it's a kind of pneumonia, and it affects the sales and the growth of animals. But you need to contain it holistically. I can't contain it without my neighbors containing it. So we need a holistic program which addresses this one, increases the value and increases the mortality of our animals. So the proposal is we need a holistic program. We can't have half-baked programs, a few mentions here and there, a program which works to solve the problem which we face. Is approximately 15,000 liters capacity.
And what are some of the problems that the facility that nature can solve?
It will control vector-borne diseases in the area. What we have here largely is tick, and we still have remnants of sepsis. So when you've treated your animals, you prevent the spread of ticks, and also if the sepsis come onto the animals, they also die, and therefore you maintain the area for better quality animals. At the moment, if you have not contained that one, if you bring, for example, a high-value dairy animal, and this tsetse fly comes and gets it, you can have a suffer terrible loss. So you need to contain a lot of that environment. My target was to have costed 80 deep tanks by the end of the financial year. The level of rehabilitation will depend on the level of damage, the access. Some of these deep tanks are found and now in private property. They will not be accessible to the community, unless the private owner of that property is willing. In my case, I'm very willing for the community to be able to use so. So they're in different parts. And these were set up and used to be maintained by government, because the control of some of these diseases is beyond an individual farmer. It has to be at a program national level. And if we say we're going to restock northern animals in northern Uganda, we must have an environment which can contain those animals. And if we want high quality animals, we cannot have some of these diseases which will put these high value animals at risk. So as a pre-starter, you must start many of these things. The deep tanks must be functioning. The vet services must be functioning. Then you can talk about introducing some of the animals which you want to be introduced. I would love to have found 80 deep tanks, costed them, and rehabilitated them. I have this one rehabilitated. I've costed one in Alepto, which I hope to start on maybe the next month or so. That one's already costed. As they come and as support comes, I have a U.S. donor who has promised they're going to help with four deep tanks. So it's going to be piece by piece, but we have to do it. Somebody has to do it. 40 years we have been stuck, at least some of us have been stuck. I want to get out of this one. I've made my own decision. I urge others, let us take charge of our future. This is mainly in the areas of Acholi, Lango, and Teso. That's where I focused most of it. But there's some in Karamoja, and there are also some in West Nile.
And then number 2.
There was also a question about deep tanks. In this particular area, the ones which are functional, of course, was ours. My tomb had one, and there's one in the Nagrik, Maruzi Ranch. They also had the deep tank within this area. There's talk of compensation. We've had talk of compensation. My fear with compensation often is the returns have not been there. If you have not prepared a society and you just bring animals, very often those animals will either die or they'll fail to maintain them. I've had situations where, and most of the animals which are sold or given in this situation are normally heifers, which is a young female. You're going to keep that animal maybe for a year or more than a year before it gets its first calf and you start getting milk. But all that period you have to input. And if you're giving it to somebody who has absolutely nothing, they'll start selling those animals even before. If they have no way of containing, dipping the animal, deworming the animal, you have to prepare the society. And you have to prepare people to do something which they might have not been familiar for a long time. I've had problems on my farm. There's a period where, despite having workers here, nobody knew how to milk a cow. Nobody knew how to milk a cow because they had not grown up milking cows. It's not something which you get automatically. You have to learn it. There's a generation which have not learned. Generation now, we need to teach that generation, teach them with the modern practice that they can be the model farmer of tomorrow. It's not just going to happen. We need to prepare them. We need to have demonstration areas where we can have these things where they're seeing it actually being done and they get to know what it is. That way is where you're going to change the society. If you just talk about this issue, talk about it just at a level of talking, there's no reality on the ground. You have to go through that process. And a lot of it will be a learning process. For many, it is a learning process because there has been a disconnect. 40 years almost, that dip has not worked. Do my children know how to dip cattle? No. Have they seen cattle being dipped? No. So this is going to be a learning process. We're going to be learning again, how did we do it? How can we do it? As we continue to build that will have the capacity to meet the future like that. But I found that I had to let go of the past. In most places where dip tanks are used in the public, there is a charge which is put per animal. So somebody will come with their 30 animals, you dip, it is worked out, and that is done. This is done all over. I've seen it done in places like Komoro, and in parts of Acholi I've seen it being done on some of those dip tanks. In Kenya, when I was working in the field, even the government used to have those facilities. And they used to charge per animal. And if they found you with your animals and they were not dipped, the veterinary officer will confiscate the animals, dip the animals, and you'll be fined for not dipping, and you'll pay the fine also, the cost for dipping. Because the intention was you need to control the disease in the environment. You cannot have one person saying, no, I'm not going to do it. You need the whole environment because these vectors move. If you don't control it here, it will move, it will affect other areas. So it's important that the whole thing is well planned, well organized. So you can't have one side organized, one side not. We must do it holistically, planned, deliberate. Create the environment which can support this, create the training which can receive. That way is how you're going to be able to sustain. I'll share with you the write-up which I have in the manifesto, which you can try to break down. We approached this as UPC that we wanted realistic solutions. We don't want this talking each time somebody comes with a wish list for a manifesto. Our manifesto are things which were practical, which can make a difference in people's lives. And I really hoped would have been tested in this. I had hoped these ideas would be interrogated. Because our hope is for a Uganda which works for its citizens. That's the only way which I think all of us will develop. And I continue to hope that that will happen.
So my name is Ngonzi Wataba. My friends call me Lagam. And also part of the reasons why this dip is very important, especially in Northern Uganda, we're dealing with the issue of balalo. But if you think about it, it is through initiatives like this that we can have a bridging of the gaps in the communities. Because now that this dip has been built on this, has been rebuilt on this farm, if you noticed around, you saw some balalos on the way here. This is not supposed to be a place of war, but a place that can bring us together as Ugandans for the good of everybody. Because like Honorable mentioned, if your cows are okay, but they're hanging out with my cows, which are not okay, then we are doing all of this for nothing. So I found that it is very important for us to understand the biggest reason we are doing this is to symbolically speak about a resurrection from the foundation, not just of Uganda, but for Africa, if you're willing to take it. That a time comes in every generation where we have to go back and revisit the foundation so that we can build for the next generation. Dr. Milton Obote built this. Jimmy Akena is revisiting it and rebuilding it. And I think whatever has been built in your communities, join us in rebuilding the foundations of this network. Like I said, first and foremost, communal work. You see, the business of, we're talking about cattle reparations in Northern Uganda. And Mr. Akena has been very categorical that we cannot talk about just giving cows back if we have not rebuilt the culture. Because there are over 2 generations in Northern Uganda that have not lived with cows. So you can give somebody a cow and it's going to become a problem for them. But now this work will enable the building of those bridges, and we can begin to work together. We are going to get young people involved in this work. We are going to get the community involved in this work, and it's not only going to be a dip for Honorable's cows, but even other cows. I hope that answers your question.
Now, what are the facilities that are required to sustain?
Thank you for that question. Now, the theory that we are working with, in spite of the willingness and what the government is talking about, let me make it very clear. Having cows given to families alone is not enough. You know why? What is the purpose of you having a cow that is going to break you because there is no market? So the should I call it the formula that the Akena Livestock Services is proposing is in 4 ways. First and foremost, let us get children involved in the interest of looking after cows, because looking after cows is a cultural matter. Yes, and then once we've done that, we are also proposing that if you're going to return cows to the northern region, what is the point of having cows if we don't have factories to process these cows? So even as the government is talking about restoring cattle, what we are also requesting is for market building facilities. How? The cows should come, and maybe this is what should come first. We should have a leather tanning factory. Here in a part where we have a Lake Kwania, it would be ideal for us to put a leather tanning factory. That is number one. Two, if we have so many cows, I think the calculation was what, 1.8 cows that would be given back if the reparation is to what? 8.17 million. What are we going to do with all those cows? Just have them running around? No. That's why we need a beef packing plant in Northern Uganda, so that some of the cows that they don't have to go to Kampala on trucks, they can go abroad in fridges or in tins. And then the third one is, yes, if we have all these Balalo and also the Northerners having cows again, what do we do with all that milk? So we need a milk plant. And in doing this, we'll not just have restored a lost regime. We will have rebuilt an economy.
I am Dr. Silvano Odero. I am a veterinarian working with one of the districts here in Lango sub-region. But of course, as a vet, we work across board where we see there is need and where we see we need to take our services. Honorable Jimmy contacted me a while ago and expressed his interest to make me come over and help him revitalize this very good facility that was lying here redundant. And so I said, yeah, that is what we are meant to do, provided it is going to give a solution to our community. As he explained earlier on, this is a facility that has been here without use. So today, when we came, a week ago, we had sent signals of coming to make this operational. So we sent in boys to clean up the long-standing and the silt, because if you look at the banks of this structure, you see a lot of mud and other things. So the dip is now clean and ready to use. So this morning, we've been charging the dip. If you see, I have even an acaricide with me. This is actually a biomeda product. It is an amitraz. It's a very effective ectoparasite drug or acaricide for control of pests, say ticks, and then sese. Looking at this environment is a good habitat for sese, and our major challenge here is a sese-borne disease and tick-borne diseases. Key among them is trypanosomiasis and even sleeping sickness to humans. So without an operational structure like this that Honorable is trying to revitalize, our community spend a lot. Our community lose a lot in terms of production, keeping the animals, and even they themselves, the herdsmen, are at risk of suffering from human trypanosomiasis. So the structure from today onward is now going to be used by the community and then the herds from Honorable Jimmy. I want to go straight to the question that they raised to my friend, that initially, what were the traditional methods of tick control in this area? So formerly, people were using knapsack sprayers, others were doing hand picking, what we call a mechanical way of controlling, but that's not effective. Looking at the population of these animals, if you are to pick a tick one by one, how effective would you be? And then secondly, some ticks have got long and sharp proboscis, the mouth parts, that you do not need to detach by just mere unpicking. So this becomes the ultimate solution. And this is very cost effective to a farmer, because once you charge your dip, you can use the dip for close to a year, when you are just checking on the concentration, recharging, replenishing, and then topping up. So we shall be dipping all the animals here every week. Community members are free. Anybody around here with animals are free to come and use this facility. Thank you.
Will it be free?
At the meantime, as he said, he's putting up the cost alone. But he said, as the community embraces it, there's going to be elements of co-funding, so we have a sustainability of the structure. Tick-borne disease remains a big challenge across the country, and farmers lose millions of shillings in managing animals against this, because we have close to 7 major diseases that are transmitted by ticks, and look at that, extrapolate it into money. The cost of acaricides alone are a little expensive, so most farmers can't afford. Now that's why we give credit to a big man like this who has seen the plight of the people around here. In my district, people are suffering in the same way just like any other part of the country. First of all, these structures are few. Before we think of bringing in animals, we need to have these structures at sub-counties. You need to have them at districts or counties. We also have challenges of qualified extension staff. You may see that we have one vet, like me, I work somewhere else, but I'm here today. This means we still have a big gap in having qualified people who should give the right information to the beneficiaries or the family, the farm families.
Kero dianga kan ebi dipping meriemo tuaraj yen kao o dianga kan uturu yena fol ame ponyewa ko dokwa be kom gibere yot onen gina mami ana kero doka kan ana kero tuni pula rio kero doka mon gina ngen archel kero warwa pa nanga fola papa do kyo pa yoni program ramir pe gihi me ponyewa yen yam chon kware wa no dingo kitu eta na hado no kono kirna ber do wa kirna ben ko wara et kita do difu do teni yiwa yo matek do wa podo tia dipping no ko pe ngator pen ko ci
ta no welo wono bi
no wele yat no wele yat yeno kene bero chupa mana tim ni mil mi gel ci mi pa le beach man wele na bu funi ron tay welo tiu kertika lungu kono duanga do eta ndo ka bisele na maro rubu na kiyo gi pere ci tabe do